All right, calling this meeting to order, Monday, June 24th, 6 p.m. Crosby, do roll call, please.
Mike,
Here.
Jake,
Here.
Gail, here, Dale,
Here.
Eric,
He's
here.
excused, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yes.
Vito,
Here.
Carolyn, here, Craig,
Here.
Crosby, here.
All right, this is an open meeting, it has been posted. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, up first, we're going to have citizens' comments.
Up first, we have Mr.
How do you
Never knew your
pronounce
first name was John. John Worsbicky. You have 3 minutes. I'll give you a 30-second warning. Thank you very much.
So those of you that don't know me, I'm John Worsbicky. I teach health education at the school. I think going into my 27th year. Here, basically, citizens' comment regarding the referendum coming up, and just really want to encourage you guys as a board. I know I'm going to speak, I guess, metaphorically, some of my worldview as far as the experience I've had as an educator at the school, but just want to encourage you guys to stay the course, I know, and to have the necessary vision for us to hit our potential as a school district. So last I spoke to you guys, I serve as our health education teacher, but also our head wrestling coach, head tennis coach at the school. It hit me all of a sudden where last I had the opportunity to speak in front of the board was 2017, and I think maybe one or two board members were present for that. And we were discussing the new tennis courts at the time with the referendum, the building of the West Gym, and the current tennis courts were built in 1980. There were cracks on them. I had former Superintendent McNulty out there looking at the facility. We agreed to, just the way logistics worked out, to build new tennis courts on the far west end of the school complex. So once the courts were built, it was kind of the initial thing with our 2017 referendum. It was the first thing people saw in the community was our tennis courts, which went from being, I would argue, as the coach at the time, the worst facility in the Classic Gate to what became the best facility in the Classic Gate, where Waterford School District, Kettle Moraine School District, Brookfield Central, they've looked at our facility, and then the layout of the facility, the spectator viewing, the ascension of both programs, boys and girls, and they became more competitive in participation. But more importantly, about 6 months after the facility was built, or maybe a little bit after that, we had some leftover money from the referendum, and we talked about putting lights on the courts. And I sat here, and it was $80,000 to put the lights on 2 courts. I think it was like $120,000 for 4 courts, and it was $158,000 to have lights on all 8 courts. And as a board, there was discussion, and then the idea was let's do this right. And I was out there, and it has become such a community resource 6-7 years later. I live behind the school. The lights are on all the time. You rarely have a situation where you have community members playing football.
30 seconds, John.
And you also have just this melding as far as our community. The other thing is with the building of the new middle school, as I wrap it up, teaching health ed, it would be a 6th to 8th grade school, my understanding. We'd have the potential to have a 6th grade health education class offered to our students. Then also just the vision of our wrestling program where back to the 1994 referendum, we have a 100 by 60 foot wrestling room that's allowed for us to have more than 200 kids in our youth wrestling program, a high school participation, we have about 80 kids. And if we didn't have that initial vision in 1994, my former high school coach designing that in John Machek. So just encourage you guys. I thought I'd take a minute to, as a board, to have you guys look ahead at the referendum and just to stay the course.
Time's up. Thank you, John.
Thank you. Is that it?
Yeah.
Okay. Move on to consent agenda. Looking for the approval of the committee of the whole meeting minutes of June 10th, 2024, and approval of the vouchers and receipts. Are there any questions or comments? Hearing none, consent agenda is approved. Moving down to G, policy.
So we have one new policy that I'm bringing forward tonight. There's a lot of language in this, and we put it out to you last week. Don't expect that you have it committed to memory yet. But it's policy 2264, non-discrimination on the basis of sex in education programs or activities. This policy has been drafted after the current administration has put forward some changes to Title IX. Over the next 5 weeks or so, between now and our next meeting, I would encourage you to read the policy, take a good hard look at all of the language there. We did focus a little bit just on some of the changes to policy, particularly what constitutes discrimination on the basis of sex, and then how that is then further defined throughout the policy. The other policy in front of you tonight is policy 2266. It's our current policy, non-discrimination on the basis of sex in education programs or activities. Because of the newness and the changes to the policy out of the Department of Ed 2264, we need to maintain our current policy on the books. There's a window of time by which somebody could say, I experienced sexual harassment during, say, 2023. We need to have the 2020, the current policy that we have in place to address that complaint. And so you'll notice on the top of that policy, it just says effective August 1st, this policy shall only pertain to reports or formal complaints of sexual harassment that are based on conduct alleged to have occurred on or before July 31st of 2024. So knowing that there's a substantial change, I'm asking you to take some time over the next several weeks and take a look at this policy. The thing to note is that right now, a number of states have challenged the current interpretation and the current regulations of Title IX. So over the next several weeks, I will be paying attention to that, obviously, and how does that impact or how is that implemented in Wisconsin or nationally. And I'll provide you with updates on that accordingly so that we can have a discussion at our July 29th board meeting.
Dr. Cook, sorry, question, please. Are the changes from the new to the old on here?
The changes, the policy 2264 is an entirely new policy.
Completely new?
Completely new.
Okay, how about this then? I'd like to make it easier to look at the old and the new. There must be some common language involved, correct?
Both our current policy, which is 2266, is in your packet tonight.
Understood.
And that is the current policy as is written, with the only change being proposed, the green that I've highlighted on top.
Okay.
Policy 2264 is an entirely new policy based off of the newly proposed and adopted regulations for Title IX. So it's not like they don't overlay well. There's a reason why there's two policies.
Got it. Okay.
Any other questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to student learning topics.
Yep, so every year this time of year in July, we need to have the board approved the state standards that we'll be using for the following school year. And so I am bringing forth tonight for any questions or discussion, and then bringing back in July. Angela will bring back to have these standards approved for the following school year.
Any questions for Stephanie?
Question and clarification for it too. Not because we adopt the state standard, that doesn't mean we use every single state standard. Can you clarify that too for the community and new
Absolutely, that's a great question. So we say that those are the basis of the standards we're going to use, how we use them as a district, and what we put an emphasis on and what we choose as focus standards is entirely up to us once we've adopted those standards. So I think if I remember right, a year ago, I think Vito had said, what happens if we don't adopt these standards? What happens is a lot of work for the district. This gives us the basis of a place to start.
Any other questions? All right, thank you, Steph.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, going to move on to finance and facilities.
All right, so just from the director's report, the things that we discussed at the last meeting was we reviewed the budget and tax levy timeline, so really targeting the final budget and tax levy getting set in October. And then I also discussed, in terms of budget development, just what happens with the declining enrollment, and what that impact is on our budget. So at the end of the day, we'll be fine for the 24-25 school year, but really because we're getting a one-time source of funding known as the declining enrollment exemption. Whatever that amount is this year, we have to look ahead at next year and look to balance our budget by reducing costs by whatever that amount happens to be. No alarm right now, just looking 1 year ahead. And then finally, I just provided some information about our facility rentals at Mukwonago High School, the gyms and the PAC for your review. In terms of the SOAR building, so back in March, we adopted our 10-year capital plan. All right, and the following month, we got approval from our electors to go ahead and purchase the SOAR building. The work that we need to build out in the SOAR building at this time is not captured in that 10-year plan, so I'd like to add an amendment, so to speak, to our 10-year plan. So as we look at what projects are we doing in the 24-25 school year, I would like to propose that we add an additional $300,000 to get that building prepared and ready to go before the beginning of school. On the second page of the memo that I provided there, you can see what the bids were for the various work. We went through those and looked at what's really needed, what's not needed. So at the end of the day, we feel that a budget not to exceed $300,000 will get us everything that we need that building to be. Okay, so hoping that you'll take action on that here. So we close on this building on Wednesday, and then we get to work right away to get that thing ready by September 1, if not sooner. Any questions on that?
No.
Okay. All right, and then in terms of pupil transportation, there's, I added a little bit of information to this here today, but I'd like to pull up a map real quick. I've gotten a couple complaints, concerns from parents in the village of Mukwonago. As you know, students that live within 2 miles of their assigned school, the school board does not have to provide transportation to a student that lives within 2 miles, with the exception if there's an unusual hazard along the way of their common path, then transportation can be provided. So if there's like a federal highway, we want to ask a student to, walk across I-43 to get to Clarendon. There's certain hazards that are just unusual. We're going to acknowledge those and therefore provide transportation in some instances. So here's a map, and we just have middle school, high school kids on this map here. So Mukwonago High School is right where I'm wiggling the mouse. We have that neighborhood across the street. Behind the high school here, then up and down 83. So there's, what do we have here? We have 114 students at Mukwonago High School on this map and 45 at Parkview Middle School. So these are the students who don't get transportation, and I've gotten feedback from some community members asking, well, why don't my kids have transportation? Is traveling and walking along the sidewalks on 83, isn't that hazardous? And really, at the end of the day, it is a school board decision on if you want to deem something unusually hazardous. Typically, we'll always get the opinion of a Waukesha County Sheriff's deputy. They'll scout it out. They'll spend a couple hours, a few times throughout a week to say, here's what my observations are. Right now, 83, I have never heard from a sheriff's deputy that Highway 83 in the village is unusually hazardous. There's always a certain degree of, there's no perfectly safe bus route. There's no perfectly safe bus stop. There's always a degree of potential risk and danger no matter where you are in the world. So the question is there anything unusually hazardous? So I just bring this before you right now to say, to remind you of the choices that you have. Obviously opening up transportation, if you were to transport all students and say there are no more walkers, there's going to be quite an additional expense that's added. But cost aside, I guess it's really, are we comfortable moving forward as we have for 40 years, if not more? So to some new board members, that's a little, might be news to you, so we're just talking about it.
So 114 kids and 48,
Yep,
and we don't, I'm guessing some of those kids get dropped off by their parents.
no doubt, no doubt.
And I don't, I see some half-empty school buses now. I'm just thinking out loud that unless you can verify it's some kind of a safety issue, I don't see the need for it, just my opinion.
Vito?
How many people?
The 114 students that we have here,
No, how many people are concerned?
I hear from a couple every year,
Like 2?
2 to 5, yeah. Yeah, it's not more than 5.
Okay.
Crosby?
So if we were to have a sheriff's deputy come out and evaluate the safety of these routes, we would have to wait until the school year starts, right? I mean, 'cause we could presume that traffic might be a little bit lighter during the summer.
Yeah, really, what they are looking at traffic, but having done this a few times in the past, they'll look at the traffic speed. They will clock drivers to see approximately how fast they're going in the area. But really what they're looking at is, are there sidewalks in the area? What's the posted speed? Do we have crosswalks, stoplights, stop signs, crossing guards in the area? That really does then influence what is the hazard, and is it unusually hazardous? So it could be done in the summer. It does take a long time, though, to try to schedule with the sheriff's department to get them to come out.
I think it's safe to say that they've already checked this out.
I would assume so.
The village they were talking about putting a crosswalk in, as you see by Fork in the Road, and they were talking about the risks of people crossing. They were talking about adults going back and forth. And I believe it was our village police department didn't see any risks whatsoever for that area.
So it wasn't too long ago where this, across the street from the high school, once upon a time, County Road, NN here was 45 miles an hour, no crosswalk, no stop and go lights, right by the high school. So once the referendum project in 2016 was built, the county put in stop and go lights, a crosswalk. So these students, before the crosswalk, we said, hey, crossing the county road at 45 with no crosswalk, that's a hazard. We'll give you busing. Then once the stop and go lights were put in, the crosswalk was put in, we said, no longer a hazard, you guys are walkers now. So we did have the sheriff's office look at that to give us their opinion. They said, yeah, it's fine, good, it's good to go. So you don't have to take action here. You can just say, hey, we're good with the way things are, and that's my marching orders, and I go communicate any time I need to communicate with somebody who has a question about that. But there is an unusually hazard plan that's been in place for some time. Pretty much in our community, it's crossing a county road. That's really it. So if you go to Prairie View Elementary, we're not asking you to cross County Road E, especially as a kindergartner. Especially age appropriateness is something that's really brought into this consideration. So as we ask ourselves, is it okay for a 7th grader to walk up Highway 83? That's your question to answer. If you feel it's okay, we can leave it as is. So if you don't have any other questions, we can.
I don't have any questions, but I'm okay with leaving it as is.
Yep.
Vito, Carolyn, you okay leaving it as is?
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you.
So the community survey. So as of this afternoon, the community survey closes today. As of this afternoon, we had 4,364 responses, which is about 1,200 more responses than we had this time last year when we surveyed the community. There's some nice numbers in there. We have about 1,650 parents that responded to our survey. We have almost 2,100 non-parent, non-staff members, so a great representation of our community. I don't have the formal analysis of this done. As surveys that are being mailed in, they haven't yet been counted. So this number will change a little bit over the course of this week. But if you were to go through and just look at the numbers, kind of the raw numbers that are in the survey, 58% of the respondents to this survey have said yes. 32% of the respondents have said no to what was the revised project. Of the residents, so the people who live in our community, there's a 57% yes rate So this is parents plus community members, 33% no rate. So the numbers are very similar when you take out the, for instance, open enrolled families or staff that might have responded to the survey. Right now, 72% of our parents say yes to this project, 19% say no. There is a number of undecided in the middle there, so I'm just reporting out on the yeses and the nos. Of the non-parent, non-staff, again, which represents almost 2,100 people, there's a 44% yes and a 44% no. There's some points in there too, but it is very, very close when you look at non-parent, non-staff. So overall, as of today, the numbers aren't final yet, things aren't coming in, and we haven't gone through and really done that deep analysis as to where our parents, where our community members are. These are just kind of the raw numbers on it. We are very close when you take out our parents. When you add our parents into the mix and when you look at what our parents are saying please pursue the project as a whole. Our staff members are also very high, but the number among staff is a much lower reported number. Again, almost 1,650 for parents. I believe we have somewhere around 200 staff members who have responded. So, you know, we're very grateful for those that took time to ask questions, come out, and complete this survey. When you're looking at that 4,364, we sent out about 16,000 surveys. So we're at a 25, a little bit better than 25% return rate, which on a community survey like this is excellent, excellent feedback for us to have. We were very satisfied with where we were a year ago, and to know we had 1,200 more folks respond, we feel very good about that. So more information to come, just forecasting out to the end of July, at our July 29th meeting, we'll be providing a formal report to the board. It'll be similar to what we did this past fall, where Bill Foster came in, gave the numbers and kind of what that overview looked like. Some additional things that we're looking at, you know, with this close of survey results, we're looking at right now, again, the $89 million project. We're also going to take a look at how much would that project cost in a couple of years if we did nothing and came back with it. And we want the board and we want our community to know that, like, what is essentially the cost of not pursuing this right now. We'll give the board then at the end of July all of that information. And then we'd be looking, going beyond that, to that August committee of the whole meeting. Then we would come forward with any questions that you had, we'd come forward with the answers to those. And then we'd be coming forward at that time with a recommendation as to what direction we would like to go. And then it would go into the hands of the board to either, is this something we want to pursue, or is it something we want to hold off on for the time being? But based off of the information that we're getting, we're finding that a lot of people are articulating that this is the right project. What we have to tease through is the timing of that project. So more information to come on that.
All right, thank you. Stephanie, would you elaborate a little bit on what Coach Wisbicki was talking about when he was talking about the health class and the advantages of the kids starting like a 6 through 8 curriculum versus what we have? I think that's what he was referring to.
So currently, right now, we do health topics in 6th grade in the district, and then again in 9th grade. And so we have, 16 different 6th grade teachers teaching it. I do think there would be a definite advantage to a 6-8 building where we could move it in there, and we have one teacher responsible for the messaging that's going out. It's the reason that we like our district nurses to teach human growth and development in 4th grade. There's 1 to 2 district nurses giving that message, and us agreeing upon that message. So I do see a huge advantage if we could move the health topics that are taught in 6th grade to a 6-8 setting.
Thank you. All right, moving on to action items, hires, retirements, and resignations.
Yes, tonight we have two staff that were offered a contract for 24-25. Rachel Bergman, art at Prairie View Elementary School and Eagleville Elementary School. Hannah Schneider was offered a contract for chemistry at Mukwonago High School. We have a staff member whose FTE is being increased from 0.35 to 1.0 FTE at Jennifer Cotterone. We do not have anybody who was offered an employment agreement at this time for tonight's approval. We do have resignations. Julie Searcy From Eagleville, Spanish, Jim Darren, MHS Principal, Carrie Flynn Barlow, MHS Special Education, Patricia Gregg, Clarendon Elementary School, Library Technology Specialist, Jocelyn Lowe, Parkview Middle School, Science and Social Studies, and Caitlin Rain, Rolling Hills Elementary School Band. And we did not have any notice of retirements. I'd be seeking approval of these staffing changes.
Make a motion, we approve.
Second. We have a motion and a second to approve hires, retirements, and resignations. Are there any questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. Motion carries. Moving on to number 2, CISA 124-25 contract.
Yep. In early May, we brought forward the CISA contract for a total of $40,055.61. Just as a refresher for the board, most of the services in this contract are for part-time staff in specific areas, teacher of the blind and visually impaired, and orientation and mobility instructor. Those are low incident services, but they're hard to find positions, so we contract with CISA where they're able to have a full-time staff member service across multiple school districts.
I make a motion that we approve the CISA 1 contract for the 24-25 school year.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. Motion carries. Moving on to policies.
So we have what have been on the agenda now. This is our 4th meeting with these policies. Over the last 2 months, month and a half, there was one request from the board to keep policy 8700, nursing mothers, as nursing mothers. So that is the only adjustment to any of the policies that the board has looked at among this batch of policies.
Do you need individual motions for each policy, or can we do a bulk?
You could do a motion to approve the policies as presented.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the policies as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Motion carries. Moving on to number 4, policy 5136.
Personal communication devices. So we, 2 weeks ago, brought forward the PCD policy and took some feedback from the board, provided a cleaned up policy to take a look at tonight. This would be a new policy to the district. This is the 2nd reading, so the board could take action on it tonight. If there's areas that any board members would like us to talk, debate, if there's additions to the policy that you did not see in there that you would like added, we can always amend what is in front of you and make that addition to the policy.
I'll make a motion to approve policy 5136.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments?
I have a
Crosby?
comment or question. So in the 2nd paragraph, which is kind of the statement of the purpose, right, that students cannot use their personal communication devices on school grounds, I'd like to see some extra language clarifying our expectations. In other parts, we talk about how during after-school activities, they have to have it often in their bag or, out of the way. We don't define that in this 1st paragraph or 2nd paragraph, I guess it is. So I just want the expectation to be very clear. What is the expectation during school? Are the phones supposed to be in the off mode? Where are they going to be? What is the expectation? I just want it to be very clear so that there's no wiggle room for negotiation on the part of a teenager. Because I sat there thinking with my teenage brain, and I'm like, how can I get out of this?
I can work on something. If there are other questions or if there's other debate, I can.
Do you want to make an amendment on there, or do you want to table it to vote on it?
I mean, I'm okay with an amendment if we can agree what the expectations are. I mean, what are we expecting? Are we expecting phones in off mode, that's what we say in other places.
I think the issue is that we have to leave it somewhat vague, so to give them the levity to do what they need to do. Like, I brought up something the other day, it's the kids in the music department use it to use their phones. So if we make
Use
it
your phones for what, Vito?
use it for tuning their instruments,
Yep.
sorry. So if we make it clear cut, then the other side of that is, so another kid's gonna come up and go, you can't do that, it says it right in the policy. So they could use the policy to make it more difficult for people, where I think the way it's written, it makes it so that it's at the discretion of the administration to be able to decide when they can and can't. And so the more strict we get, the less we leave open for them to kind of take in special circumstances. Am I right?
Yep, there is, if you go down about the middle of the first page, except as authorized by a teacher, administrator, IEP team, students are prohibited from using PCDs during the school day, including while off campus. So the example that you provided, Vito, if it was something that did help with tuning of instruments, it would be permitted under this policy. But then the expectation would be then that it's returned to just kind of based off of what Crosby's comments were, that, all PCDs will be in the off mode, kept in a backpack, pocket, car, locker, or other location that is out of sight, something of that nature.
And
So
so if we added that one in there, and there was any other ones that were come up where the teacher was like, yeah, for this one we can, a kid would be able to, somebody would be able to turn that around and go, nope, policy doesn't say it, can't do it.
Says except as authorized by a teacher.
Yeah.
Right, so so the purpose that you've just outlined is covered by that.
So
That's the exception. The teacher says you can use it for tuning, or you could use your calculator.
I suppose I'd be interested to hear how much more specific are you looking, what exactly are you looking to be more specific?
Well, we say in other places that the phone should be off, right? So why don't we say that in that first paragraph? And that's a clear expectation, right? The expectation is, as of right now, it's just that they can't use it. So I could put my AirPod in, I could put my phone in my bag, and I can have my AirPods in all day, not using my phone, but I'm still being distracted, right?
How about where it says during after-school activities, PCD shall be powered completely off? Add that to the end of the first sentence of the paragraph. It's like covered there, but I see your point. You want it more like right at the beginning.
Yeah, there's a lot of language here, and I think it's all important, but I think the main point kind of gets lost in a lot of the other language that's in here.
A possible amendment could be all PCDs will be stored off and kept in a backpack, pocket, car, locker, purse, or other location which is out of sight of the classroom environment. So that it wouldn't be in the hand, it would be put away and in the off mode.
Me personally, I would like to see them in the locker. Just the temptation of the kids wanting to pull it out. In between classes, they're going to be pulling them out. I just think we might eliminate all of that if we just kept them in a locker and turned off.
Is that enforceable for year one?
Just in some feedback that I've gotten as I'm talking to parents about this, I fear that the pushback will happen if they have no access to it, for various reasons, safety being one of them. Usually, as I'm having a conversation with parents, I'm not talking kids right now, I'm talking parents, I can get them to the point of understanding that academically it's not great for their kids to have access to the phone all the time. When I have mothers especially saying what comes if the thought is that they wouldn't have access to it if something happened that they needed access to it. So in a backpack, I think is a better place for us to start than trying to monitor that they don't have it anywhere on them. I see that being a nightmare for us to try to manage at first.
Is the potential amendment,
Speak in the microphone, please.
is the potential amendment then a little bit easier to enforce, or does it provide some clearer parameters or expectations?
Yes, I would say so. The out of sight, I think, to me, is what I keep thinking about in my mind as I think about administration and teachers building something that will work, is the out of sight. It's gonna need to be out of sight.
Okay. Then I would like to propose an amendment to include the language that you, what Joe said.
So the second, I guess, sentence, paragraph in the policy would say, in order to avoid disruption of the educational environment and to protect students' right to privacy, student use of PCDs is prohibited on school grounds during the school hours. All PCDs will be kept in the off mode, in a backpack, car, pocket, locker, purse, or other location which is out of sight, which keeps the cell phone out of sight. We can add that language on if the board approves this amendment.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the amendment.
Okay,
I second.
we have a motion and second. Vertsy?
So the parents I've talked to about it, one mother called it extreme, but I think once I said it's about test scores, it's about kids learning. Right away, she understood that, but I think we need to really, Stephanie,
We
that's
are already building the why to start sending out to parents, for sure.
huge. The messaging is huge. Why are we doing this? Not to be a bunch of idiots, but to have kids learn.
It is kind of I would say a unifying topic, if I would dare say we have a unifying topic right now. We've got states all over the country. We have the Surgeon General who weighed in on this. People who I think are looking at it from a variety of different angles are understanding the impact that these phones are having on kids, not only from a learning standpoint, but also from a mental health standpoint. And, you know, if we can do our part, we will do our part during those school hours.
I mean, the good news is we're starting somewhere, and down the road, as we get through, we can always amend this a little more if we need to. We're not gonna get it perfect the first time.
Any other questions or comments? All right, we have a motion and a second for the amendment to the personal communication devices. Any other comments or questions? All right, all in favor of the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. The amendment motion carries. Now going back to policy 5136 with the added amendment, are there any questions or comments? All right, hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. Policy 5136 is approved. All right, moving on to iReady Math at Eagleville.
So this past spring, Michelle Ziegler is here this evening to help explain everything. We had very low kindergarten enrollment at Eagleville, and the original plan at Eagleville was to use Bridges in kindergarten, and then starting in kindergarten, it was to use starting in first grade, it was to be using iReady. As a result of that low enrollment and high interest in other schools, we moved the kindergarten teacher to Prairie View. We're able to capture a full section of kindergarten at Prairie View. In the absence of having that dedicated kindergarten teacher, we do have the opportunity to serve kindergarten students at Eagleville this year, but we have to do something a little bit differently with curriculum, which is why we're proposing adding iReady down into kindergarten. And I've got Michelle here to explain kind of the why behind the iReady, and then answer any questions that the board may have.
So when I was here a couple months ago, I had explained that Eagleville had opted to go with iReady because of the multi-age classrooms, and at the time, kindergarten was self-contained. And so we had chosen to go with Bridges because we've really tried to keep kindergarten at Eagleville to be very similar to the other kindergarten classes across the district. It made things collaborative-wise with the teachers easier and whatnot. But with the change, kindergarten and first grade are now going to be paired together. And as a result, iReady is truly the best option for math in that regard. Bridges just wasn't a viable option as far as the time constraints, the logistics behind doing direct instruction for 2 different grade levels. And so that's why we're here to ask for the board to approve kindergarten iReady at Eagleville now, as opposed to Bridges, which we'd already had approved.
Any questions? Comments? Seeing none, looking for a motion to approve the iReady Math at Eagleville.
Make a motion.
Second.
To approve?
To approve the iReady Math at Eagle.
Okay.
Second.
We have a motion and second to approve the iReady Math at Eagleville for kindergarten. All's in, any questions or comments? Carolyn?
So we're keeping, if kindergarten and first grade are together, because was it first and second that were together?
Yes.
We talked, maybe this was talked about and I totally missed this, but what's the
So
new class division at
It will
Eagleville?
go kindergarten, first grade, second, third, fourth, fifth, and fifth, sixth. So there's one third grade section, and it's a 2-3 split.
Okay. Interesting. Okay. How many kindergarten students do we have at Eagleville?
I believe 7.
Okay.
I did call all of the parents that had registered their students at Eagleville for kindergarten and had a personal conversation with them on the phone. And I believe they all elected to stay kindergarten, had great questions, but felt comfortable in the end with the decision, minus, I believe, one set of parents.
So the rest of Eagleville is using Bridges.
The rest of Eagleville is using iReady, so
They're
the
using
whole
iReady.
school will
Okay,
be iReady.
that makes more sense. I thought they were using them, like, that doesn't make sense. Okay, I'm with you.
Any other questions or comments? All's in favor of passing the iReady Math at Eagleville, say aye.
Aye.
All's opposed, say no. Motion carries. Moving on to the SOAR building.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you, Michelle.
All right, so we're looking for a motion here to approve an amount not to exceed $300,000 for the purpose of preparing the SOAR building.
I'll make a motion to add the SOAR renovations not to exceed $300,000 to the 10-year capital plan for the 24-25 school year.
Second.
We have a motion and second. Any questions or comments? Hearing none. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Those opposed, say no. The motion carries. Moving on to the WASB contract.
So annually, we bring forward the arrangement between the district and the WASB. We received the invoice for it, and we're coming forward for action this evening.
I would like to make a motion to not continue with the WASB contract.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments? All those in favor of not approving the WASB contract, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. Motion carries. Moving on to unfinished business, superintendent's report.
All right, so we are well underway with summer school. We have about 1,400 students from our young elementary kids all the way up through our seniors in high school who are participating in a variety of enrichment activities, athletic opportunities, music opportunities. It is a great, great program. We feel very fortunate to have the staff that is on board doing this, the teachers, and then Ben Kassow and his leadership team. You know, when I started a year ago, I asked Ben to tell me a little bit about our history of summer school, and I think when he took it over, we had somewhere between 500 and 600 students, and now to be at 1,400 is remarkable. It helps us not only from a learning standpoint, but those 1,400 students and the time that they're here with us also helps us from an FTE standpoint at the end of the year. So it's just a great, great opportunity. Thank you to all involved there. Our buildings and grounds and IT group this summer, they are busy at work getting our schools cleaned up, getting our technology ready to go for next year. They do all of the behind the scenes stuff. In addition, they're keeping the facilities, the grounds looking really, really nice. When we toured some new principals around this past year, both left the schools just so, I mean, it was the end of the school year, right? I mean, this stuff is usually coming down. But when we took them through the buildings, they were just so impressed with how beautiful the schools were and how well they were kept. So again, thank you to our B&G folks and our IT team. And then Stephanie, I have to continually remind myself that you are just going down the road about a mile away to MHS. But I do want to thank you for your leadership at the district office, across our system, the work that you have led from the instructional side. It has positioned our schools, elementary, middle schools, to do excellent, excellent work. We're looking forward and we're excited for what's coming next at MHS. As a professional, you're second to none, but I really do appreciate all you've done to help me get started here. You've been a mentor, a guide. It's been fun to talk to you. Your facial expressions sometimes tell it all. But I've always appreciated your honest input and feedback as we've gotten going. So thank you so much. Tonight is your last board meeting without invitation. We do know we'll see you in the future, and we wish you tremendous success at MHS.
Nice flowers.
Just like to say, yes, I am sad to see you go in your position. Those are big shoes to fill. You are just tremendous doing what you do, your passion for our kids and curriculum and your job. Driving by here at 8 o'clock at night sometimes, seeing your light on, seeing you working still.
We'll just move down now.
Yeah, now we'll just move down. So big shoes to fill. We'll miss you here, but I've never been more excited going into a new school year than what's upcoming. Seeing the new leadership at school and in your hands, I'm really excited. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
And I guess speak out to people posting on Facebook, and if you ever have questions, you're not going to get your answers posting on Facebook. Dr. Cook, direct line, you can email him. He'll get back to you and explain like any of the questions or concerns you have. So please direct those to Dr. Cook, because you're probably not going to get the answers on social media. Thanks. All right, we're going to move on to executive session. Wisconsin Statute 19.85. We're going to be discussing post-retirement benefits and considering the performance evaluation and possible promotion of specific district employees for the 24 and 25 school year. So looking for a motion to close the open session and go into, closed session.
I make a motion that we move into closed session.
Second.
All right, Crosby, do roll call?
Crosby, yes. Mike?
Yes.
Jake?
Yes.
Gail?
Yes.
Dale?
Yes.
Vito?
Yes.
Carolyn?
Yes.
Craig?
Here.
All right, now we're closing the open session and take a 5
Yep.
We are back into open session at 7:43 PM. After the closed session, we have nothing to report on. So looking for a motion to close our meeting.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I second.
Motion a second. All in favor?